hit record so we don't forget here. Make sure that we're letting everyone in. So we've got Lisa here from the Watson Institute. Let me see here. Oh, I love seeing everybody's names come in. We got Meredith from the Village Project, and Andrea from Salute, Colorado. See, we've got Antonella. Hey, I see you. Love it. University of Michigan Library, where Tiffany is hanging out. So good. Amazing. So it sounds like we've got people really all over, but actually I feel like we've got, I know Antonella, you are in Canada. Yeah. Oh, Katie, hi. I did not see your face. We got Katie representing Vermont. I love it. So good to be spending my Friday with y'all. Okay, well, I just want to, well, first of all, as we're kind of, people are coming in, definitely, oh, Ginger's in Boston, I love it. Definitely drop your name, your organization, where you're at inside the chat. I think people are going to continue to be dropping in here. So yeah, but this is just an opportunity for us to have a conversation, help you get some questions answered if you have had any from the challenge, and then just talk about some of the wins that you've had this week. So yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you. I am blown away. There were over 430 of you who signed up throughout the week, which just like blew my mind, was so unexpected. And it was really cool to watch how, just watch you all as you were digging in. So yeah, okay, I will open it up. Are there any questions right off the bat? Or are there any wins? I know that there are some wins, and I know that there are some questions, so do not be shy. So Tiffany just asked in the chat early on, you mentioned about a paper calendar that you use. What is that again? So I use something called the Daily Page. I will pull it up right over here. So I use the Notepad, and it's a one-page. Okay, let me grab this here. It's a one-pager that I write my list, and like I can keep track of like how I'm doing on my hydration. And if you use the code Rachel10, you can totally get 10% off. But yeah, there's lots of different options to choose from, but that's so funny thing is I totally made a planner because I didn't have something that really was what I wanted for integrating both, the digital systems and the analog systems. And so I literally created a planner. I've got a whole box of them in the back because I stopped selling them. I mean, if anybody wants one, like pay for shipping, you can have one. But I found the daily page and it worked for me. So I was like, yeah, no, this is great. So yeah, that's, I feel like a very long-winded answer to your probably very simple question. So let's see here. Meredith just said, I am really working this week to get time blocking because interruptions throughout the day really give me an opportunity to context switch, which I am really trying to avoid. Yes, I am so glad. How is it going? Is there?
So it's going. My biggest issue is we have volunteers in and out throughout the entire day, all week, because we have
Mhm.
cooking in our kitchens, and they will
Okay.
just pop in. And I've always had an open door policy,
Mhm.
and they just pop in. How was the Christmas break? Hey, I got this new vendor that we might want to try. And without being rude, that I find is my biggest issue
Yeah.
with it, that I struggle. I haven't quite gotten it down. I really don't want to have to shut my doors because I find that that's really standoffish, but I almost feel like that's the route I have to go when I'm in my focus time.
Yeah. You know, I think anyone can appreciate, like, hey, I am focusing, I'm working on this one thing. And when you work in an environment where people are coming and going, that's so hard. So I guess there's a couple of options. One of them is maybe just trying, like, you can have a really nice, like, note on your door that is like, hey, I'm focused on a big project. Um, my door's closed because I'm focusing on this big project. Looking like I'll be out of my office at X time. You could even get like one of those like little clocks and be like opening my door at 12 p.m. To kind of like to let people know that like you're still there, you're still connecting, but you got to do some deep work. Um, the other option is, I'm not sure what your office setup is if you have to be there when volunteers are there, but maybe, when you're working on a specific project, it's going to like a co-working space or to the library or somewhere else that, it's like when you're in your house and you're like, okay, well, I need to do laundry, but I'm going to avoid doing the thing I need to do because I really don't want to do it. Um, but if you're at the laundromat, like all you're doing is the laundry because that's all there is to do there. So, so that might be an option. I don't know if that's helpful, Meredith.
It is. I thought about the sign. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to offend any of them because of them, we are able to do what we do, like all of us. So I didn't want to offend, but that seems to be the big. And then once I am done talking to them with whatever I'm talking, then I get distracted and start working on something else because I'm completely
Yeah.
out of the zone of what I was working on. So maybe I'll try that. And I can work when they're in Tuesdays and Wednesdays when they're typically in. I can work at a different location. I can work at home.
But you want to be there too.
Right. Fridays
Yeah.
our office is officially closed. So I work from home on Fridays, which is great. If I want to be there, I want them to see, oh yeah, I'm here. I'm there a year and a half. So I want to make sure that they know I'm here and I'm
Yeah.
accessible. So that's where I struggle with that. But maybe
Yeah.
I'll try to sign like a nice little note on the door.
And this goes back to boundaries too. Like, hey, I am, if volunteers are there Tuesdays and Thursdays, then I am going to come out and visit and hang out with you, like be truly present and part of the action from 11 to 12 p.m. and then 2 to 3 p.m. or something like that. So like you're still engaging and you're still connecting and you're able to build, because that relationship building with your volunteers is so important. It's also important for you to do that work and creating those boundaries so that they know that you are accessible, but you're going to be accessible during this amount of time.
Right.
I am going to pause just real quick, just a heads up. I do live on an actual farm, and we are loading corn today. So there are semis that are driving through my driveway, and my dogs are very interested in being there. So every once in a while, they're gonna bark. Um, so yeah. So Meredith, I hope that
works.
Maybe some ideas to try.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see. Tiffany just said, Meredith, you can also have a small whiteboard so people can leave you messages. Yes, that is, I love that.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah. And then Katie also said when we still had an office, we had a policy of asking, are you available? And it made it a norm that it was okay to say no. You know, when we are in these offices, you I feel like I haven't been back in an office. I've been working from home for almost 12 years now. So I haven't been back in the office. You know, and I haven't been back in an office post pandemic, and, you know, what the norms are and how people are working. I think our energy is spread so thin sometimes that we do have to, I think in some ways, the last couple of years have helped us create better boundaries. And at the same time, like, our boundaries are like nowhere. So it's like, so we have to redefine them in this world that we are living in now, whether you are working at home or you are working in an office, and it's going to be different for everyone. And it's important to have those conversations. And if you work with a team, just as Katie was saying, you know, how, like, having a conversation like, hey, deep work is important. When do we want to do that? When is, like, you know, maybe we have no meetings on Tuesday for everyone in the office, or maybe we make sure that, like, until noon, like, we're all able to focus on, you know, whatever our big project is. Like, getting that buy-in from the other team, your other team members, your staff, your volunteers, so that everybody's on the same page and feels comfortable and knows the rules, you know. So let's see here. Andrea said, my biggest takeaway has been the sun up and sun down routine. I love that. Oh, now everyone has just moved because the chat went all over the place. So Andrea Davis said, I'd love to learn about this sun up, sun down routine. I think I missed something. That was in day 2, challenge number 3. And that is where we talked all about our habits and our routines and just the importance of habits. And we can touch base on that. I'm going to try to check out the chat here, make sure I didn't miss everything. Megan said, it's nice to see everyone today. I think the biggest challenge is that I am a sole employee of the nonprofit I run. Too many days start with to-do lists, but then I get waylaid by other tasks that are equally important that pop up. It's hard to organize. Oh, and then it goes to organize as well as feel as though I'm actually completing things on your list. Yes. Megan, where are you, Megan? Let's see. I'm trying to find you. Why can I? There we are. Hi, Megan. Yeah, so when you are the only person in your organization, it's hard to kind of determine, you know, what those priorities are and how you are going to focus. Did you have an opportunity to check out the prioritization video yet?
I didn't. I got through the first day and that was it.
Cool. Totally.
So I'm
okay.
looking forward to, I need to do some catch up for sure. But again, it was that kind of a week. I was like, yes, this is important. I want to check it out. And then it didn't happen.
Yeah, no, because we work in small shops and that's how things go. Totally. So yeah, so prioritization is, you know, here's the thing about being a small shop. You are always going to be juggling. Always. And something is always going to drop. There's just no way to keep all of the different things that you are doing inside your organization up in the air. Something is going to drop. Your job is to be really intentional about what you are going to drop. Because part of what you're juggling, there are, you know, those more fragile glass balls that you are juggling. And then there's, you know, the plastic bouncy balls that, you know, they bounce, it's okay. They just, you know, bounce. You want to be intentional about really knowing which ones are like, this is the one that I have to keep in the air. And this is the one that, well, we're not going to get it all done today, so this one's going to go. And that's where prioritization comes in. In that lesson, I do talk about 3 different ways to prioritize, and you have your to-do list. You start your day, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna rock the day. This is gonna be good. And something blows up. Something happens. There's a fire drill. Okay. Now is the time to pause. Is this a fire drill that really is a crisis? And is this something that, like, if I don't drop everything and work on this, like, disaster is truly going to happen? Like, really thinking about that question. When I worked at the Humane Society, we would have lots of different crises that would come. Some of them were, that I'm trying to think of on an average day, like the social media person didn't show up, crisis. Okay. Then we would have one where we have a load of animals that came in, and we're down a couple of volunteers and need some help because these dogs got to get out of their kennels, walked, like, introduced to their new space. Okay, so if we're thinking about those 2 different crises, like, lives at stake, it's important. Like, we got to take care of these animals. This is what we are here to do. I might be the marketing director, but all hands on deck. Okay, we pause, we cancel meeting, we do what we got to do. Social media person didn't show up. Important. We want to make sure that we are sharing things on social media, but if we don't share something in that moment, that's okay. It's okay. So what I'm trying to really just get across here is there's always going to be a different priority level, different crisis level, and what you write down, what you create as your priority list for the day, it's always taking that half second to just pause and be like, okay, is this a crisis that truly is a crisis that I need to stop everything and stop the deep work? Or is this something that can wait? And that's something that you have to decide internally, and it takes practice. And there are days where I'm like, I got this. This is my to-do list. I'm gonna, like, yeah, I got it. Have my boundaries. And then there are days where I am playing whack-a-mole just like everyone else. And you have to have grace with yourself. You are doing a lot of things, and not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day you're going to hold your boundaries. Sometimes things are going to blow up. Sometimes it's a really quiet day and you end the day and you're like, oh goodness, I just knocked so many things off my to-do list, and you feel great. I don't know if that helps at all, Megan. One thing I will say is that when those crises come up throughout the day, or the big distractions, if you did put together your to-do list, if you did put together your priority list, then you aren't spending all of your time inside of your computer, you can go back to this list that is analog, that is off the computer, and come back to it and focus on what's right here, which you wrote down at the start of the day.
Yeah, thanks. I think all of that's really helpful. And it was making me think also, I think in many ways we're so programmed constantly to be making lists and shifting them, and the kind of higher functioning brain things. And I'll also do this thing where I'll call it free association day, and I'll just give myself permission to move from one thing to the next. And it's all important and I need to get it done, but it feels a little less stressful that way. And it's like cutting myself a little bit of slack because there is no one else to hand anything to. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, of course. And um, Katie Miller, I'm gonna call you out here real quick. It was year end. And Katie is one of we have a few members of the Sprouted community in here who have joined, and I love it. But Katie said something like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do when everything feels important and everything feels urgent?" Who's been in that bucket? Who's been in that bucket like this week? Yeah. Um, and Katie, do you remember like do you remember how we kind of worked through that and some of the things we talked about?
Yes. I feel like if it was last year, well, you also know I have other stuff going on right now that I'm just
Yes.
like, I don't even know up from down right now. But I promise in the moment it was extremely helpful. I think for me, what really winds up being helpful, not just in that moment specifically, but in general, is a couple of things. One is to say, like, what is going to burn the house down if we don't get it done today? You
Yep.
know, like what's an actual emergency? And there's something I tell people on my staff all the time, which is like when they say everything feels like an emergency, and I tell it, and I remember to tell it to myself, which is like, I ask them the question, is the house burning down or are you just hot? You know,
Oh,
like,
I love that.
and it like helps put things in perspective. So I think that helps. Like, what's an actual emergency? What do you have to absolutely get done by the end of the day? And I don't mean like what feels like it has to be done, what actually has to be done by the end of the day. And Rachel, if it's helpful, I can share something that I can't remember if I learned it from here or somewhere else, but about prioritizing when you feel like your list is too long.
Ooh, share. Maybe
So
I'd
I
love to
used
know
to
if
be
I
one
taught
of
you
those,
something I can't remember.
I used to be one of those people where I felt like everything was important. And if I didn't get through the day, no matter how long my list was, if my whole list wasn't crossed off, I was not productive, no matter how much I got done. And I have worked over time to shift my mindset where I start my day by looking at my whole list and I say, if I accomplish nothing else today, these 3 things are the things I'm going to do. And it helps me say, like, these are the 3 things I'm focusing on today. And sometimes it's not 3. If I have a day full of meetings, that's my thing for the day. I'm not trying to do things beyond that. And that really helps for me. I take it, I do one post-it and it's 3 things and I cross them off over the course of the day. And if I get them done beyond that, like, and I have more time, that's great. But if I don't, it doesn't mean I'm a failure either. And I think that really helped me feel like, get realistic about what it actually means to be productive. Like, productive doesn't always mean more. Sometimes it means better focus. So yeah, that's my big advice on to-do lists.
I love it. Yeah, and I think it's sometimes also like triaging our to-do list. Like there's so many different ways to prioritize and bucket information. Couple of the other kind of things to think about, like when you are looking at that to-do list, when you are triaging it, okay, what are the things that, like, this is where I like to trick my brain. What are the things that I can do if I like set a timer and just do it? They're like the 2-minute tasks. Like, I've been avoiding doing them. Like, I need to call and make a doctor's appointment, but oh my gosh, like, why is that so hard? It's those things that are just like that you can just like get done. Okay, so that's a bucket. What are the things that I am never ever this ever? Okay, I'm this all the time. I'm always the bottleneck on my team. Like, because I'm like, oh yeah, no, I just need to do this, and then you can do it. And so I hold on to it and I wait, and I'm like, yeah, no, I need to do this and I need to do this. And I feel like I have to like hand my team this like perfect package of like information so that they can go and do the thing. No, they are very smart people. They are very smart people. They can run with it. So what, like, another bucket is there anything sitting on your to-do list that is preventing someone from doing their job or what they have signed up to do. And especially when you are like a one person shop and like you have volunteers that are here to help you. And you're like, I remember trying to pass off social media and I was like, okay, before I can pass off social media, I need to make sure that all of the, captions are written and I've made a whole bunch of graphics and so that I can give it to them. No, this person signed up to do the whole thing. They're like, you don't have to do any of that. I can do that. You just need to tell me what we're talking about. Oh, okay. I passed off and it was great. It was easy and they rolled with it and I was holding it up. So what can you do to help someone? And this also goes back to like creating some SOPs, which not what we're doing right now. It will always and forever be on your list. So like, don't think you need to do it right now, but what can you do right now to allow someone else to do something for you? So those are just a couple of different ways to think about your to-do list. Zoe just shared the Eisenhower. Oh, an online version of the Eisenhower. I'm totally pulling this up to see what it is. Ooh, can you actually put your stuff in here? Oh my gosh, you can. You guys click on the link that Zoe just shared. That is awesome. Okay, if you want to be analog, write this down. But if you're into the digital to-do list, then that is super fun. Zoe, thank you for sharing that. I love it. That is awesome. So good. Thank you. Okay, am I missing anything? Okay, I think I have hit everyone's questions like inside of the chat. Does anybody else want to ask any questions or have any wins from the week? I'm dying for a win. Who has a win? Give me a win. What'd you learn? I'm seeing lots in the chat. I migrate analog to this digital list every evening. Oh, I love that. KDM 10-second tidy. I get little things off the list. Thanks for the link. Can you share more about what goes up into the sun up routine? Yeah, absolutely. So Lisa just asked that. So sun up and sun down routine. It's so funny because this has been, I actually did a different time management course a while ago. And so for those of you who don't know, I had a concussion a year ago. And so I've had to relearn a lot of my systems and a lot of how I prioritize, just because my brain is having to work harder. Different systems that I had in place are no longer in place, like kind of all sorts of things. And so I was just kind of doing different time management workshops to really figure out my systems again. And one of the things that I didn't realize I was doing, but they actually just called out, is like this upload and download of information every single day, because I was doing that every day because that's what I needed to retain it and to make sure that I was able to focus on my to-do list. And what I didn't realize is that, by writing it down, we're 40% more likely to actually do it. And because we're writing it down, we're remembering it. And so like, I didn't know those stats until a little while ago. And I was like, holy crap. So this does work. So sun up and sun down routine. Again, this can look different for everyone. I will share a little bit about my sun up routine. So what I try to do now, am I perfect every day? No. But what I do try to do and what it really looks like is I walk into my office. Number one, I definitely forgot my afternoon snack and my coffee from the day before. I know I should take that to the kitchen every single night. It is, I don't. So number one thing I do is I take my coffee mug from the day before and my snacks to the kitchen. Number one. But what this does is it reminds me that, okay, I'm clearing off my desk. I'm making sure that my workspace looks good. Usually my space is pretty clean, but that is, we get papers, things, whatever. So just make sure that I'm starting the day with a clean area. Then what I do is I have this, which is my daily page. And then I have my notebook, which is my, I just write all the notes in here. Okay. I am a paper calendar person. Like, I have to sketch things out. It is in my calendar. My digital calendar is my calendar, but I have to write things out. And then, okay, I'm not gonna reach it. I've got a thing of Post-its over here, okay? I make sure that all of these things are in order. Now, I save all my Post-its. Call me crazy, call me a hoarder, whatever you would like, I save them. I have a box. Whenever I'm done with them, I put them into the box. Probably gonna do a reel about this. I don't know what the reel is, but I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all these ideas. Okay, so I collect all my things. I then open my computer and I created a startup browser. So my startup browser has my calendar, it has my email marketing, which is where like kind of my, like what would be your CRM, your data. What is on my startup browser? See if I can pull it out quickly. My Google Drive, my calendar, my email marketing, my habit tracker, and my my dashboard. And then I also have, like, if I'm working on, like right now, I'm talking to members, I'm making sure everybody's getting enrolled and Sprouted. So I have a few documents that I'm using for that. So those are on my startup browser. So when I log in, all of these tabs come up so that I can see all of this. And I don't have to go and like, okay, I need to log into this and I need to, nope, they all come up. Sorry, Janelle, I said dashboard. So I looked at it, my dashboard, which one is, oh, it's for our online hub. So the back end of the Sprouted community, I pull that up to see, like, are people watching videos? Did anyone get stuck? Like, what's what's happening in there? And so then I really start going through each one of those and, what's on my list. And I just start writing all of my to-dos. Sometimes it's copying over from the day before. Oftentimes it's copying from the day before. But it's looking at these tabs, checking in on the different things, like, oh, I didn't schedule that email that I wanted to go out, or, kind of, we just have our tabs that remind us of the to-dos we need to do, even if we didn't get them written down. So they're those prompts. John just said, I'm impressed you don't have a million tabs open, not talking from experience. Oh, don't worry, because part of my sun down routine, which is so hard and I am trying so hard to do, I close all my browsers every night. That is part of my routine because I end the day with a million tabs open, a million. I mean, so many, it's not okay. But I'm like, okay, part of my sundown routine is closing down all those tabs. They will all be there in the morning. We will start over. So yeah, so once I get my to-do list together, I pull out. So if you have the daily page, there's the top 3, and I kind of write my to-do list, and then I write my top 3, and I'm like, okay, if I get nothing done today, it's these 3, go. So, and then I get to work. Sometimes, like, of course, there's some email in there and things like that, but like kind of that's like the gist of my my sun up routine. And I find that, so I work from home. I don't have meetings scheduled in the morning, and so I will kind of have this routine. I will try to bust something out, and then I go get ready in the morning. So my brain is just like ready to go. I'm like, okay. So I will kind of do the first part of my to-do list, and then I'll go get ready, which is nice because then it's a little bit of a break. I usually listen to a podcast. I always listen to a podcast because, I don't know, I listen to a couple news podcasts and I know how much time I have to get ready so that I'm not like playing around, like, start playing on our phone, looking at videos or whatever. And then I go back and I like get back into work, but it gives me a nice little break from kind of the morning rush and then back. So yeah, that is kind of my sun up routine. But oh good, I am glad that you're finding this helpful. Let's see. Yeah, any other questions, comments? Kate?
Yes, I do have a question, and I don't know if I overlooked this, if you talked about it, but what you use to manage your social media posts, shares, scheduling, that kind of thing.
Okay, so
And yours are good, by the way. I really like yours. I like what you put on Instagram and stuff like that.
thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, I wish that I had let's see here. So, okay, really what you can have the greatest tool, but it's making sure that you have the strategy behind it. So what I really try to think about and what I kind of do with the team is going back to my Post-its. I got my Post-its, and every month I'll pull out my 4 Post-its and I'll put them on my desk, and I'm like, okay, for this month, for January, I'm going to talk about this, 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 and this. So I have like a topic a week that I'm going to talk about. Okay. So then that's typically what, and I have a lot of different content. So I've got a podcast. So whatever we're talking about on the podcast, we've got those planned out pretty far in advance. So I take a look at, what podcast is dropping. Okay. Let's, so I have my 4 Post-its and I'm like, okay, so podcast is dropping. Want to make sure that we're talking about this. Following week, what's another topic? Okay. So then the podcast, my email kind of align so that you're hearing from me about a few things. And then I take like whatever I've written. Oh, I just lost you. Oh, there we go. Whatever I've written from the podcast and from the email and use those as social media posts. So what happens is I'm creating like one main piece of content and then using it to talk about in a lot of different places and share in a lot of different places. So then what I do, so as far as a scheduler, I am using MeetEdgar. It's a pretty sophisticated platform because it's doing some things that because I have a podcast, I want that information to be shared over and over again. So it's something that you can reshare content. If you are just starting out using a scheduler, the most important thing is to start creating that habit of one, creating the content, and two, so creating the content ahead of time, and then two, getting it scheduled. So the Facebook scheduler is actually pretty dang good. I have not used Hootsuite in a long time. I feel like they did like a whole bunch of updates and made it like super complicated. And I was like, ooh, my brain hurts. Okay. So I've used later.com. I do like Later, and I do like Planoly, like if you're mostly on Instagram. But here's like, this goes for project management. This goes for any tool. It's the strategy behind it, like what are you actually doing? And then two, creating that habit that, like, I've been producing a whole lot of content for social media for a long time. So having those habits in place to make sure that you are doing it consistently, so that you aren't really, really good at posting for like, a month, and then all of a sudden, like, people don't hear from you for 6 months. It's creating that habit, creating that routine to make sure that you're able to keep up with that consistency. And that's, maybe that's part of the habits that you're building. Maybe that's part of your sundown routine, is like making sure that you are, planning the social media for the day, for the next day. And then sometimes, like, I just get like I did post something, the different songs, if you saw on my Instagram, the different songs on your birthday, or like how productive you're going to be. I saw that and I thought it was really funny. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this. So it was like an ad hoc. I didn't really like put much plan or thought into it. And then I like copy and pasted like some content from an email. So, I try to really reuse stuff that I've already done. Andrea, I'm looking at you because we've been working on that for a little while. Andrea and I have been working together to create content and repurpose stuff. Has it been helping? Hopefully.
Yeah, and I have to share, just as far as like having a really good nurture series where then it captures the same message and shares it in different ways. I was on a collaborative call. We're doing an annual event with 5 other nonprofits, and they were like, oh, and now we got to create an email campaign. And I was like, check out our nurture series that we can just modify slightly. And then everybody's just pasting in a little like sentence, but it becomes really simple. So then we go from like having 5 emails to 15 that can be spaced out now through May. So we're confirming that together, and that was done over the course of 45 minutes in a session together. So yes, definitely helping. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. That is amazing. Amazing. Kate, I feel like I took your question and like kind of put it all over the place. Looks like you just summarized it. Thank you for that. Let's see here. Summary, strategy, habit, routine. Yep. Content creation, surprise, fun stuff, reuse content. Yes. I love it. Real quick, before I know people are going to have to start jumping here, we are doing a panel. If you guys, so there are a few Sprouted members in here. So the Sprouted community is open for enrollment. If you're an ED and you are interested in joining, we're actually doing a panel for you to hear from some of the EDs who are inside of the program. So if that's something that you would like to learn about, please sign up for that. And yeah, we're gonna just have an awesome conversation about some of the things that they're doing inside of their nonprofits and what they have learned. And yes, I did create Sprouted. It was previously called the Productive Executive Director. Over the last year, it's really gone through a transformation that is, it's about so much more than being productive. It's part community, part curriculum and part coaching. And it's ideal for small organizations who don't necessarily have the budget to, have one-on-one coaching, or to, hire a consultant, or you have a full-time person. It's a place, it's a community for you to be connected with other executive directors who are in the same position as you. So yeah, I did create it. It did come from my brain, but it's so much more than me. So much more. It is the people who are in it who just are. I'm like looking at the faces. I don't want to get like teary, but I love the EDs that are in the program, and it's a special place. It's a really, really special place. Meredith, yes.
I just want to say, so I just wanted to say to those who are not part of it, I joined back in, I think, July, and I kind of hung out in the background, not really knowing, I don't even know how I actually found it, to be honest. I'm sure I got something from Rachel, from Link, I don't really know, but I kind of hung out in the background, not really sure. I did the monthly membership, and I kind of played around and took a couple of the things that some of the other executive directors were talking about, that I was like, oh, that sounds like me. That sounds like a problem I was having, and kind of picked what I want, cherry picked, I guess. And then there was a fundraising lab that we did for year end, and I had done year end the year before, and it was fine. But I didn't really know much about it. I didn't know how much to give. And this fundraising lab was worth its weight in gold for our organization. Rachel really took the time to give her best advice on how to do it. And we all worked on our letters together separately. Rachel took the time to kind of read over, and it really helped because I was going about it from a totally different perspective. And like I said, it was fine. It did the job the year before, but it was boring. And this year, our goal for year end was 58,000. And Rachel, I didn't even get to tell you, we made 86,000 from it. I mean, that was huge. My board was over the moon, and I was nervous because I was like, I don't know if this whole power ask was how that's going to work, because we never did that. And I got to tell you, that alone was worth its weight in gold. So I'm a big fan of it. So Rachel, I didn't even have a chance to tell you that. So that was huge. That was my big win for the year. Right? I was shocked. I was shocked by it. My finance director kept coming to me and saying, we're at this, we're at this, we're at this. I was like, really? How? And it was just, we expanded the scope of who we sent to, which that had never been done before. The previous executive director, who was also the founder, she typically only mailed to the past year and donors. So we did expand our scope there, but we recaptured about $40,000 in lapsed donors, but almost half was from lapsed donors. And some people sent notes back, said, thank you. We didn't know what was going on with the Village Project. Hadn't heard from you. And just the way the letter was written was huge. So if you're on the fence, it really was worth it. And I feel moving forward, I'm able to feel a little bit more confident now in, okay, this investment is worth it.
Wow.
So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh.
That was huge. So
I'm not often speechless. When you join Sprouted, this. I talk and I'm like, Meredith, you worked freaking hard. That's the other big piece that needs to be acknowledged here is, and I know this goes for everyone on this call. Your job is hard, and there is always something to do, and there is always, you heard me say this in the fundraising lab, like there's 1,000,001 ways to do something. There is all these different strategies. Every single consultant, everyone is going to tell you a different way of doing things. And I think what is really important to remember is to get the foundation down. So Kate, this goes back to, the social media piece. Like creating those foundations, you know, knowing the basics. Because Meredith, now that you had sent out a letter before, but then you were able to take what you had learned and add to that. And that's what it's all about, is continuing to grow on and expand based on what you have done before. But you have to first pause, you have to stabilize, you have to start where you are. You can't be here and think you're going to start over here. It just doesn't work that way. And I think as small organizations, we think, you know, we see these big organizations doing these big galas or these big races or raising all of this money, and it's about the little tiny habits, little tiny routines, and little steps that you do throughout the entire year that add up to big results. And, you know, Meredith, I think you put in the time, you put in the effort. This was not just a one-time, like, I sent out a letter and it was great. No, this was months of work, of working on it, and one step at a time. And that is part of what we do here. We try to, like, inside Sprout It, we try to break things down to the very basics so that you have that foundation, and then you can build on what you have learned and take another one of those 1,000,001 ways that you can do things, and try something new. Because that's also what this is about, is trying new things, because nothing's going to stay the same. The only thing that's consistent is change. So, you know, you have to be willing to take risks and try different things. And so
like, just one of the little things that I learned from it, well, a lot of things I should say, but I mean, aside from the power ask, was a simple thing of the first year I did it, we printed labels for everybody. I was like, we have a very small staff. We just needed to get it out. So we printed labels. And one of the conversations we had is, do you print them or do you handwrite them? And overwhelmingly, everybody was like, handwriting. I was like, I can't do this. This is a lot. And I will tell you, we wound up doing that. And they also even recommended the perfect pen for it. And let me tell you, they're the only pens we have in the office now, because everybody loves them. It's something as silly as that, but it worked. For us, it worked. And our volunteers came in, they hand wrote some envelopes for us, and we sent out 1,500 letters with all handwritten envelopes, and it was huge. So just little things like that. So I'm appreciative of it.
it's amazing.
What pen?
It was a Sharpie gel pen, and it's the smoothest thing you would ever imagine. And it's gold in our office.
Love it.
I love it. I don't think I saw that. So please do share.
Yeah,
the
I
pen.
think it
love
was Amanda who sent it.
Oh, amazing.
I
Okay.
think it was Amanda. And you will be happy to know, I also just bought a big box of Sharpies, like all the colored cosmic Sharpies that,
Love
you know,
your Sharpie.
at the idea of Rachel here. So
Hey,
Hey,
gotta have your
Rachel,
key pen.
can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is Sprouted just for EDs, or can directors of development also participate?
So it is just for EDs. And the reason for that is because there are just some things about being an executive director in a small shop that just, I'm keeping it to EDs. That said, I think this year will give us some opportunity to do things with some other roles within organizations, specifically the fundraising lab. I think we'll probably open up for more people. So yeah, you'll just have to keep your ears open for that. But yeah, Sprouted is for executive directors and founders. So
Great.
yeah, not
Hey,
disappointed.
I looked at your planner. What is it? Daily paper?
Oh, yeah,
I've already
Daily Paper.
ordered mine. I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, so that one's not mine. That is another girl
Yeah,
from the internet who has
Yes.
an amazing planner, but she's
but I
local to
love
the-
the recommendation. Thank you.
good. Oh, I'm so glad. Let me know when you start using it and what what you think. So
I copied the template on my planner, so I already started using it and I love it. It's perfect.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome. Awesome. I love these when we figure out these little tricks that just like,
Make life easier.
revolutionize. Yeah. It
Yeah.
just like these are the things that we, by being in community, by being able to have these conversations, make it like so awesome. So, what other questions do you have? We are coming up on an hour. So, hopefully you saw that, the panel we are doing on Tuesday, where we are talking to EDs about just how they have done things. And then if you have a chance, I'd love to have your feedback on the challenge to just get your, love to know what you thought and get your feedback. And so, yeah, let me know. But I'm here for another hour, right? Yeah, another hour. So like, let's keep talking. What questions do you have? What wins do you have? Of course, if you need to jump off, go for it. But yeah, what questions? Tiffany.
I think there was a question in the chat about the sundown routine. So in addition to the sunup, I think someone followed up and asked, can you explain your sundown as well?
Yeah. So, okay. My sundown routine, I wish that I could say that it was like a super graceful, like very zen. It's not. Here's how my evenings always go. Okay. It's like 4:51 and I have 3 dogs and they're like, yo, we think it's about dinner time. And then they will not leave me alone. So I get up and I go feed them. Because they will not leave me alone if I don't. So I do that. And this is when that is like my cue of like, okay, you gotta start wrapping things up. My human gets home around 6:30. So I've got this like chunk of time. Am I the person who has dinner like ready? No, like literally never. He could do that too. So that's I always have good intentions, doesn't always happen. So the dogs kind of spark that like, okay, time to start wrapping things up. And so that is when I start looking at the tabs. And what I do is I actually start taking, okay, so on my daily page, there's this like notes and ideas. I start writing down like the things that like are not on the to-do list, but it's like, don't forget this. And I start like putting them on here. And so I start closing down the tabs like, okay, I've done this. This is open 4 times, like try to wrap up anything that I was like right in the middle of when Morty's nose comes and is like, yo, hungry. And just try to close up any of those loops. So for me, it's more of just like a brain exercise of like, I have just been in it. And now I'm trying to like remind myself that it's time to close things up. So I get everything kind of on my daily page. I collect all of the Post-it notes. I collect all of the pieces of paper that I have everywhere. It's amazing the chaos I can create in my office in a like 6-hour period. From there, I'm looking at that note section and I'm like, okay, what am I doing tomorrow on my calendar? Is everything on my calendar? Okay, great. Then the like going through the tabs is really helpful so that I make sure that I have things on my to-do list, closing those down. And then, my to-do list, then I double check, like, do I have any emails that are like scheduled to go out? Have I, are those scheduled? Did I actually schedule them? Are they where they're supposed to be? Okay, great. Then I look at my, my Slack. I make sure that I respond to anything. I try to schedule any Slack messages that maybe I didn't get to, because I don't like always dropping things into people's inbox, or Slack messages at the very end of the day. So I'll oftentimes schedule them for like the next morning. I also do that with emails. Like sometimes I will try to go through and respond to a bunch of emails and then schedule them for the next day. And then, yeah, so I kind of go through that checklist of like, okay, are the things for tomorrow scheduled? Because otherwise I'm going to wake up first thing in the morning with like this running to-do list. And then that starts my day in like a more chaotic mode. So all of those things, like respond to that person, like write that email, send that Slack message, do that reminder. I try to like pull those together. And then we do have a project management system, and I'm going to be honest, I've been really bad at it lately because I've been in a different to-do list mode. My person who keeps my project management system running is about to have a baby anytime now. And I was like, cool, I'm off the hook. I don't have to do my project management system. This is going to come back to bite me so bad. But I'm like a kid who just got ice cream for dinner. So stay tuned on how this blows up in my face. But yeah, so that's kind of my sundown routine. And then literally just close down all of the tabs and then stand up and walk away. So I do have my office in, it's in my house. So it's easy to just keep working, but closing all of the tabs because I know that they're going to open up tomorrow, so that's kind of my sundown routine. I also try to throw a tea in there. So I go hit, like when I feed the dogs, I like hit the hot water thing. It's winter right now and I'm in this like massive tundra land, and so it's just like always cold. So I'm like, okay, make some tea, grab a LaCroix if I'm feeling like spicy. So yeah, what are other people doing in their sundown routines? What have you been adding, or your sun up routine? I would love to hear. I would love to hear what you're doing. Tiffany, have you started putting yours together yet?
So no, I actually am very similar to Megan, where I really wanted to stay on track with this, and then life happened. And so I'm actually just trying to catch up. But I'm very interested in putting together rituals, things that don't seem overburdensome, but that they become second nature to help with the rhythm of your day, right? Like, so I like to think more of rhythms than, like routines. Maybe it's just a word usage but rhythms seem a little bit more accessible and a little bit more fluid and natural. I used to be a dancer and musician, so rhythms for me just make more sense. But to be able to hear how you have some basic elements and how those would then map on to my experience, I think is probably the most helpful. So I was writing down, even in the chat, how do I disconnect from the end of the day? And I love the concept of gradually closing each tab, but writing down what to keep in mind for the next day. So that when that last tab closes, when I shut down, when I walk away and close the door in the office, I don't have to worry about the tomorrow because the tomorrow has already been thought about. And so I can take that mental energy and put it into the other aspects of my life that bring me meaning and fulfillment, right? So that when I do start that summer, when I do open up the browser and all the tabs populate, then it's like, okay, I've already thought about what the day might need. And I have some additional brain space for when the day surprises, right? Because there's some time, I mean, all of us have those surprise things that come up and steamroll us. But having that mental space to be able to accommodate that knowing that that routine stuff has already been written down from the day before, that's what I'm really excited to try to implement next week.
I love that. It's the idea that your brain is meant for having ideas, not storing them. Oh, did I lose you?
No, I just left
oh.
myself muted. So precisely, right? Like it's really, and I'm a big creative person, right? So Meredith, as you were talking about having all of these, you know, being open to new ways of doing things. Sometimes when you're so overburdened by the everyday, you don't have the capacity, right? Like it just doesn't. When you said no,
Yeah.
we only have time for printed labels. I feel you on that, right? Because I don't have space to change a pen. Like even sometimes those small changes can become overwhelming when you don't have the capacity to create or to have space for the new. And so I feel like I'm talking a little too much, but
No.
it's very one of those things where you desire to have the space to accept possibility. And hopefully some of these things that we are learning to our time management, our time blocking, those types of things will help us to create that space to increase our capacity.
Yes. I mean, like mic drop. I can just like walk away now. Tiffany, you nailed it. Like that is, you know, that is what this is about, because part of being in a leadership role in your organization is being able to think strategically, to see the big picture. So inside the Sprouted community, I was talking, one of the EDs, you know, received feedback, like kind of had a feedback from her board, like her annual review, and received some feedback that was just frustrating and or just critical, you know, and a lot of us were chiming in on that, because I think what we forget is that like our role is to see the whole picture, to see the strategic landscape, and to be able to encompass that. And so for this ED, you know, it's reminding her that like what she's getting feedback on is a very small piece of what, you know, the board is seeing, because they don't see the whole big picture of what you're doing. They're not there day to day you know, day in, day out. And that's part of being an executive director, is being able to hold space for all of these things. You have to manage up, you have to manage down, you have to manage out. Like there's a lot to do and a lot swirling and a lot in your head. And creating that space to be able to think is critical. I want to go back to, you know, one of the things you said about, you know, the rhythm, you know, the rhythm of your day. Part of how the Sprouted curriculum is built is through seasons. You know, you're not always like, you know, year end, it's all about fundraising. You're fundraising throughout the year as well, but like there's a lot of emphasis on it in Q4. And then in Q1, we are really focused on planning, on building that blueprint so that you know what you're executing, what you're working towards. You know, then Q2 is making sure that you have the resources, you are gathering, you know, getting these systems into place and getting things organized. And then it's prioritizing. Okay, you got to prioritize, make sure that you know what to focus on. And I mean this is not at a to-do list level. This is a higher level. This is your, you know, looking at your organization. But the way that the Sprouted curriculum is built is based on seasons, because you can't always be going 100 miles an hour at the same thing. You know, you really have to go in these seasons, and you have to continually be, you know, stabilizing, optimizing, expanding over and over and over so that you can, okay, sprout, right? Like there's a very important reason why this is called Sprouted. You plant the seed, seeds sit on the surface. And I know this because I literally watched for months waiting for these seeds to pop out of the ground. But then once they do, they shoot out of the ground and they grow and they explode and you have to take care of them. But then what happens? We harvest and they die. And then we start all over. So if you think that your role, your job is just this like straight like rocket ship, oh, we're in a cycle, we're in a season, we're in a rhythm. And it's finding that rhythm, it's finding how you accomplish each of those different pieces, having the structure, having the support to move through those seasons, move through that rhythm, is really, really important. So Tiffany, I'm glad you said that. So what other, we've had a few new people. Tracy, I see you jumped on, and we've got Karen. Anyone have any, and Megan just jumped up. Yeah, any questions or any wins from the week? Kate, thanks so much. Really valuable insights on systems, seasons, habits. Looking forward to hearing more. Tiffany's got to jump off as well. No worries. I am so glad you guys are here. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being part of it. Yeah, definitely. If you want to join the panel next week, jump on there. But yeah, so Andrea, Ginger, Cheryl, Karen, Erin, anyone have any insights that or questions that you want to ask? You can feel free to unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat. Otherwise, Meredith and I can just like stare at each other. No problem. Meredith, what day for you was most impactful?
I found them all impactful. The one that I realized I have been doing the sun up and sundown. I just didn't have a name for it.
Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of nice to have that name for it. And it was kind of nice. Like, I feel like that was kind of a win, because I was like, oh, I don't have to put too much brain power into that because I'm already doing it.
Yes.
So that was a huge one for me, just to be able to put a name to that. The time blocking, like I said before, is a big one for me, because I just seem to always get shot all over the place and pulled away from what I'm doing. So that's the one that I really am trying to focus on. I do have it blocked on my schedule. I'm just not very good at following my schedule.
Yeah.
So that's the key, is really kind of forming that habit, and then figuring out how to stack some of my habits. Like, I find I do, like, that one is the one I really want to work on the most, because I know that I can. I just can't quite wrap my head around all of what I can actually stack.
Yeah.
So that one I'm going back. I'm going to probably listen again and go through the workbook and kind of focus a little bit more on that. I struggle also, I say I do all the sunsetting, it's not the sundown, but then I will find myself at night occasionally checking my email, see if something comes through, or if a client leaves a voicemail, all the voicemails come to my email, which pop up on my phone. So I'm always checking, because if a client reaches out to us and is looking for a service, I want to make sure that, okay, that's the first thing I need to do in the morning. And then I add that to my to-do list.
Yeah.
So they all really stuck out, and I do bits and pieces of each of them. I just need to kind of really work on doing them all a little bit better.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it takes time, and kind of what we were talking about with seasons, like in certain seasons, certain parts of our habits, and it's just easier. Right
Right.
now it's 7 degrees outside, so going for a walk outside,
Not happening.
I mean, yeah, it's like, I got to take the dogs, but like we walk like to the end of the acreage and back because it's cold. Whereas like in the summertime, like we're outside a whole lot more. I take more calls, on my earbuds and, you know, can kind of incorporate those different pieces that like bring a little bit more joy, bring a little bit more like kind of not just sitting at the computer all the time. You know, when I'm thinking about like not following your schedule, and I kind of can we dig into that a little bit?
Mhm.
Because I think that's like a mental block, an emotional block. Like, what do you think it is that prevents you from following that schedule?
I think it's a mental block to some degree. I also think it's me saying, okay, I have 2 or 3 really big priorities. We're now gung-ho, we're full blow preparing for our annual gala end of March. But
Okay.
this is also where most of our grants are due as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of high priorities, and I could easily spend all day working on grants. But then I forget, oh, I need to get this done over here for this big event because this is one of our largest fundraisers for the year outside of our year end. So I think it's, I think I need to just kind of redistribute my time blocks. I think I might have them set for too long because then I get bored towards the end of it.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, I need to go over here now. Now I'm going to focus on this. But then when I do that whole switch, I get into the whole context switching, which I love that term because I do that all the time, but I never knew there was a term for that either.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, I get bored. I get a mental block. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a break from this and I'm going to go over to this other really big thing that I need to focus on.
So what's your zone of genius? To me, it sounds like you much more you would rather write grants than plan an event.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I've been really successful at getting the grants and I've been successful with event planning, but I don't have the support from like our board of directors. We don't have a committee really that runs it. So I kind of oversee it. And then I have to have individual staff who that's not really their forte to do. So the event is really stressful to me. Whereas the grants, I'm like, oh, I got this. I can pick something from here. I can pick something from here. We need to focus because we need a new dishwasher. We need a new freezer. It's easier for me to do. So I tend to fall back to something that eventually doesn't challenge me as much. Not that it doesn't challenge me. I get greater satisfaction a lot quicker from it, I guess.
Yeah. I think this is a good lesson. This is a good, as executive directors, some executive directors are going to be very like, for you example, like are going to be great grant writers and some are going to be great event planners and some are going to be great you have your zone of genius and you have like what you enjoy. And I think it's recognizing that, number one. So like, okay, I like working on grants. Before I'm allowed to work on my grants, which is what I want to do, I gotta get this, and this done for the event. And using the grant, like it's funny that we're rewarding work with work, but like rewarding yourself with the grant work.
Right.
That's one way to think about it.
Okay.
Other way to think about it is, okay, how much do you raise at the event?
About 60,000.
Okay. So if you were to free up time during the year in planning, because my guess is that like the planning takes longer because you don't want to do it and you avoid it. And so you're spending a lot of time like in that context switching because you're like, yeah, I gotta do this, but I'm not gonna do that. We all do that. If you found someone who loved planning events that could take some of that, bye Andrea, it's good to see you, I'm glad you were here, who could take some of that off of your plate and allow you to, one, you focus on the sponsorships, focus on the tables, focus on, focus on the pieces that you like. Maybe
Right.
maybe there's another piece that you would rather do, or that you could offload to another person. But thinking about where your zone of genius is and trying to stay there while also managing. But part of that is delegating. Part of that is, okay, I know this is not my zone of genius. And so my focus needs to be being able to find someone who can take this on. And there might be some upfront cost. You might have to hire someone, you might have to there might be cost somewhere, but what are you saving in time? And what can you, by taking half the pie of your time, giving it to someone else, what could you fill it with that could raise even more? Starting to think about that. Something that we do talk about inside Sprouted is, the time versus money. They're both valuable. Money is a renewable resource. Time is not.
Right.
So how can you better use your time to create more money?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I thought about that last year, because I know, coming up with all the intricate little details that go into planning events, that's the minutia that I can't stand. I can't stand the little minutia things. I can sell the tables, I can do the sponsorships. That's where I've always been strong at. And it's adding all these other pieces, and I'm like, I can't do it. And so I've talked to the board about it. You want to know where I need help. This is the area that you can step up and help in taking some of these other things, securing the MC, securing the live auction items, working with the group that is overseeing the event registration, things like that. So that's where we're going. We got some work to do on the board. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We are getting there, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done there as well, because I inherited this board.
Yeah.
So there are those issues as well.
Well, I think it's, I think that's it's something to think about. It's something to, continue to evaluate as an ED, that you are staying in your zone of genius, so that you aren't having to context switch, so that you have more time to think. That's all, it's kind of sometimes just shifting how you think about different things.
Yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. I will say one of the things when I first started, you started talking about creating the standard operating procedures and putting all of that down, because there was none of that. So that's been a work in progress, but it's coming along really well. And I have each staff person now doing that for their individual roles. Cool. Which that's helping, so that if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, somebody can pick up where I left off. So
I love that.
It's just helping,
so important,
getting a lot of these processes in place that were not there before.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give Ginger and Cheryl any last words. There's no need to stay on if we, if we have, we don't have any more questions. And what Meredith and I have just been doing, this is a lot of what we do inside of productive, or inside of Sprouted. These are what the coaching calls are like, digging into these problems and thinking about things and just having these types of conversations, because sometimes you just need that sounding board. So well, Cheryl and Ginger, I'm so glad that you were on, and Meredith, thank you for being here. I'm going to share the feedback here real quick. If you have a hot minute to fill that out, I would be so grateful. And and you guys can start to see Morty here in the background, who's looking forward to his afternoon walk. But it has been lovely getting to chat with everyone. And yeah, if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me. You can post it in the Facebook group. You can send me a DM, send me an email. And then, of course, Sprouted is open for enrollment. So if you have questions about that, definitely send me a message. But we'd love to see any new EDs join the community. So yeah, with that, I guess I will say thank you, and I'm going to turn off the recording.
Have a great